Okay, guys, I'm wearing sunglasses today because the future is bright. You know.
Yeah, in case you didn't know.
That's a change.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd think the opposite based on everything we're seeing.
It's all in the way you look at it, you know? It's all in the way you look at it. And so today, in offering this new perspective that I'm bringing to the 131st Corridor Digital Podcast, usually I play guitar, but I want to offer you guys a choice today. I have guitar, and I also have a reading from the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah, let's do the reading.
I think it's unanimous over here.
All right.
Let's hear what Tao has to say.
All right, let's see what the Tao. So this is an ancient Chinese manuscript. Well, kind of like a proverbial manuscript. Let me find a good one. Here we go.
I'm just gonna thumb through it.
Here we go. Are you ready? Governing a large country is like frying a small fish. You spoil it with too much poking. Center your country in the Tao, and evil will have no power. Not that it isn't there, but you'll be able to step out of its way. Give evil nothing to oppose, and it will disappear by itself. This is the Tao.
That's interesting.
Love that episode of The Mandalorian.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's saying if you don't bother evil, it will just go away.
Well,
Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
I think you're missing a little bit of it. Let me give you one more. Maybe a shorter one.
Is it let evil destroy itself with its own momentum, like that kind of thing?
Pretty much. That's more like Art of War, but yeah, that's pretty much the idea. It's not that it isn't there; it's that you won't be subjected to its power.
You won't
when
be poking
follow
its fish.
The way of the Tao.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm not going to get into any more ancient Chinese philosophy, but there's a lot of good stuff in that book. Anyway, wow.
Well, thanks
what
for
am I
sharing.
talking about? Guys, look at what's going on. We've got a new person in the CorridorCast.
Yeah, what's up?
Welcome.
It's Sam Gorski.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
A new version.
New V2 Sam.
Final version 2.
Yeah.
No,
It's for real.
seriously, I'm super excited because today, Fenner Rockcliffe, ladies and gentlemen, has joined us for a CorridorCast. But more than that, he's joined us for effects, videos,
Everything.
good times.
Good times.
Some of them CGIs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's joined us for life.
Yeah.
For life.
You only
Once
leave
you're
in a box.
Fenner, actually, yeah. Clint says that he left, but actually,
He's in a
once
box.
you're in,
Well, I signed the blood contract, so I'm pretty,
Okay, yeah.
pretty in right now, I think.
yeah. There's no real leaving corridor. Yeah, once you're in.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, basically. I think that's a good way to put it. Well, no, the reason it's not because of anything evil or bad. It's because of these friendships that we create here
that's
last a lifetime.
Oh.
Wow.
It had nothing to do with
Much
cages
less
or anything.
menacing.
What Chinese proverb is that?
Yeah, is that a Chinese proverb?
I don't know.
So anyway, I thought it would be fun to bring you on, Fenner. Get a chance to for the Troutons to get to know you, and kind of talk about what you're into, what we're excited about this year, and just get to know you a little bit.
Sweet. You got. What do you want to know? What do you want to know?
Oh, I think we should start it off real simple here. All right. So
Okay.
we make videos. We do VFX, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So maybe in your own words, why don't you explain to us and everyone listening, like what you did before you got here that makes you a person that we should make videos with? Like you obviously have a visual effects background, but for people who don't know you yet, like what have you been up to, or like what are you into, or where have you done VFX before?
Yeah, I mean, like probably a lot of people watching the cast, like I started doing VFX watching Corridor and Freddie W way back in the day. It's like how I got into VFX. Like back in high school, just doing that. And yeah, it was something like I remember the very first like comp shot I did was like a Freddie W muzzle flash tutorial, and I was like, oh man, I can make a muzzle flash on a gun. That's the craziest thing in the world, which I feel like is probably a lot of people's stories that are in VFX. Like, I ended up like going to a really awesome VFX school called Think Tank Training Center, which is located in North Vancouver in Canada. And it was amazing. Like it was such a great experience. You kind of learn a little bit of everything, like animation, rigging. They did like life drawing and actual clay sculpting as well. So you'd go like do a clay sculpting class and then go do ZBrush right after it, which was really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it was kind of nice. You learned a little bit of everything. But the first semester you don't learn any sort of compositing, which kind of all through high school I'd been doing like little videos with my friends, super inspired by Corridor stuff, just like running around the neighborhood with airsoft guns, having muzzle flashes and stuff. And then I was once I got to the school, I was kind of like, oh man, this isn't really what I thought it would be, because there was no comp class. Semester 2, I think it was like day 2 or something, they actually did like the intro to compositing, and it was the first time I opened Nuke. And then our teacher was like, here's Action Essentials or whatever. And I was like, oh, sweet. This is why I'm at this school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those free asset packs.
Yeah, for real. And so after that, I ended up just kind of going full tilt into comp. Still kept doing the other classes, but I kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, clay sculpting maybe isn't a career for me. Yeah. And then from there, basically, I had a really, really cool mentor at the school. And he basically hooked me up with one of his best friends from childhood, who was actually starting this really small comp-based VFX studio called CVD VFX. And I got just a random call from this number, and the guy was like, yo, come work for me. And so I went in for an interview, and their office at the time, there was like 4 people working there, and it was literally 2 janitor's closets that they converted into like a studio.
Wow.
And it was cool because I had another interview lined up that day at a big studio that'll remain nameless for now. And basically the dude, Chris Van Dyke, who's amazing. He's my mentor in the industry. He basically was like, come to interview with us first, then go to yours. Went to the big studio interview, walked out of it, called him right away. And I was like, hey, can I come work with you guys?
That's awesome.
Because I got a better vibe from the janitor's closet than the big ass boardroom.
Why was that?
It was honestly one specific thing. Like when I walked into the interview at the little janitor's closet studio, they were basically like, sweet, your reel sucks. Like,
Oh.
yeah, they were like, your reel sucks, but we can make it better. Like you can learn how to do VFX here and you'll be working as part of the team. The big studio I went to, they basically like put it on a big projector screen in the boardroom, barely even looked at it, and they're like, yeah, amazing work, great stuff, great. And I knew my reel was shit. Like it was like work in progress. And like it was a lot of like final underscore version 32.
Yeah.
And then the guy was like, yeah, you'll be fine, a monkey could do this job.
Oh,
And
thanks.
yeah, so I was like, oh, okay, probably don't want to work there. So yeah, I ended up working with the guys at CVD VFX, and they were amazing. I learned so much there. It was incredible. Worked there for a number of years until the studio was acquired by a larger studio. Ended up working there for a while, and then kind of during COVID was starting to feel like it was time for a change. And I saw your guys' video for the we're hiring, and I was like, man, I should just like, I've always loved Corridor. It literally is the reason I work in VFX. And I was like, man, I'm just gonna like take a flyer on this. I'll send in a reel. Didn't hear anything back for months, so I was like, didn't get it. Figured as much, which was fine.
No, that's just how we do it. We
Yeah.
just keep
I had the
people on their
same thought.
toes.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, which was totally all good. And then eventually heard back, and I was like, oh my God, and came down for that visit. During this, I guess it was last summer or something, and Nico and I worked on this.
Yeah, that's when we did the X-Wing video.
Yeah, that Star Wars video, which was
The
super
trench
fun.
run.
And
Yeah.
it was crazy to me because like, it had all happened during COVID, and I'd been working from home for like 2 years. So that was like my first time being back in a studio environment, which felt amazing. Like it was, so I was like, oh my God, human beings.
Yes. Touch my hand,
Yeah,
please.
which was amazing. And and then so kind of after that week, I was like, holy, like I think I gotta make a change with my career and kind of get back to why I got into VFX, was because I wanted to make films, not just work on films, And so that's when, we kind of moved ahead with things. And I'm from Canada originally, so we had to start to look into a visa process, which was definitely a process Jake and I worked through.
Oh man.
Dude, a long time.
Yeah, it was wild. That's the first time I've ever had to do anything like that, and it was cool to see like, hey, this is actually, there's a process for this, and like, you know, you can actually like be a little Corridor Digital, like trying to bring somebody in from another country.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal for us too. Like, it was months in the making, because they make you compile like a whole presentation of documents, because, you know, effectively like the burden of proof is on you, you know, to prove that like, okay, you're bringing somebody in. Okay. What are they? And there's certain types, and the type we were applying for was like, okay, Fenner's got extraordinary abilities and talents.
An extraordinary alien.
I know, it must be very validating in a way where it's like, hey, you want to make some videos together? It's like, no, first we have to convince the government that you are worthy of being hired by a company here.
So we drove down from Vancouver, my girlfriend and I I was so stressed about the border crossing, because like I talked to Chris Van Dyke, who my mentor, and he had gone down and done the same thing when he worked at ILM San Francisco. And he's like, I was like, how did it go for you? He's like, oh, I didn't get in. They turned me around at the border. And I was like, what? That was ILM. Like, what? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, good luck, man.
Wait, why did they turn him around?
They were like, we don't know, like, if this is legit, like whatever.
Are you really extraordinary?
What VFX was basically. They're like, are you really an outstanding
That's
alien?
So funny. Wait a second. Hold on. Wait, can I
I made sure ours was approved.
Yeah.
Before
I crossed into Canada at the border there, from Washington to Vancouver. This was like 2008. You know, because we shot like this low budget movie up there that year. So like I was pretty young. I was like 22, 23 maybe. But we had my old car. It's like this little Ford Focus packed to the brim with like computers and PCs and stuff. Like you look at the car from the outside and you see like the inside of a PC case because it's missing like the panel. So you like literally are looking at a bunch of computer parts. We drive up there and we're at the border and like, what are you guys coming in here for? And we're like, camping, you know, just gonna camp and like chill. And like you look at the back, it's just like binders and like PCs stacked on top of each other. And the guys, they're like, huh, okay, well, let's look through the thing. And so they open it up and they found like wait, no, they didn't find the airsoft guns. So yeah, they didn't find the airsoft guns because obviously we're shooting a movie. But that was like the most nerve-wracking part, was like, thankfully we had piled enough PCs to hide the airsoft guns. Yeah. But still, camping, I guess, worked.
Welcome to the cool section of the podcast, where I tell you about the coolest tool that we use here at Corridor Digital, courtesy of today's sponsor, Storyblocks. Whoa, wait, Jake. What makes Storyblocks so special? Well, I thought you'd never ask. Reason number one, Storyblocks has a virtually unlimited library of all kinds of stock assets, including but not limited to high quality 4K B-roll, images, audio, motion graphics, After Effects templates, and more. And every time you go on there, there's something new and different, so it is like a virtually unlimited library. And that's awesome for what we do. Reason number two, Storyblocks has an unlimited all access plan that gives us, well, unlimited all access to their assets. That allows us to download as much as we want and use it in whatever we want for whatever purposes. That includes commercial work, that includes personal work, that includes work we put on YouTube, anything we need it for. It's all that sweet royalty free. They also have an enterprise plan. If you're part of a team and you want to get that going, talk to your team leader. You can get your whole team hooked up with Storyblocks. You're gonna need a stock asset source if you are serious about creating. So we use Storyblocks. We highly recommend it. And if you guys are interested in getting started for yourself, head on over to storyblocks.com/CorridorCast to get started, or just click that link in the description below. That's storyblocks.com/CorridorCast. Thanks for joining me on Jake's cool integration corner. And now I'm going to turn around and get back onto this podcast. Later.
Yeah, it was so stressful. Like I was like, I'm not gonna get in. Like I totally had it in my head, and rolled up, and the border security guard guy that was checked, he was so chill. He's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm going down this job, like working VFX." I guess he knew what VFX was, and I said, Like I talked about like the stunt artist react, and he was like, "Oh, that's so sick! Like,
Really?
dude, welcome to America!" Like, he was like,
Starts firing his gun.
for real. He was like a total
Just takes his
bro.
gun out, just
It
starts
was,
shooting.
it was awesome. And then so I had to go into like the little kind of visa immigration area, and then he ended up. I guess they do like I don't know, like they swap off their shifts or whatever. And then so he ended up being inside and sitting next to the guy that was doing my immigration thing. And he like sat down next to him. He's like, "Watch out, bro. This guy's gonna be famous.
This guy is extraordinary."
Like, I'm not even joking. They were like fist bumping. I was like,
Dude.
what is going on here? And they're like, "Welcome to America, bro." Like,
Oh
I was
my
like,
gosh.
not at all what I expected. It was excellent. It was a nice, very warm welcome to the United States.
That's great.
It seriously, I was like, hell yeah. Like,
It's funny because I'm a green card holder, so I'm like what's known as a permanent resident. So I'm not a citizen, and I lost my green card, but still went to travel to England not too long before I started working here. And I thought it would be fine because I assumed they had like a digitized system to keep track of me in some way, shape, or form.
Oh my God.
But they don't. And so as I'm trying to get back into the country from London, I get stopped by the people who work at the airport, and then they go and get a representative who doesn't have a name. He's a representative from America who's only known by a number.
that's
And
awesome.
he comes out and he gives me a very stern talking to. He says, "I'm going to be honest. I don't know if you're going home today." He didn't whisper it, but it felt like he did. And so he goes back behind the scenes, calls the consulate, or I don't know, whatever the heck, calls friggin' the president, and comes back out. And he was like, no joke, no nonsense, absolutely stone cold terrifying. And he's like, "I got you in, but I'm not doing this again."
Wow.
And that was like it. And I remember thinking I was alone for like 45 minutes thinking, okay, well, I got to figure out how I'm going to live in England now and I remember being so scared because
It's not just like I'm trapped in England.
Like-
it's like,
like,
no, I have to continue
I'm not
my
coming
life.
back, you know? I've heard horror stories of that where you just don't get back in. And I was just about to start working here and I was like, well, that sucks. That's
like
that's a rough
halfway.
start.
Yeah.
Can I work remote? Like,
What
is that fine?
What's that pharmacy we're called, like Boots or whatever?
Boots
You're like
pharmacy.
halfway through an application, like shit.
Yeah, so I like your experience better. That's nice.
It was honestly, it was like, it made such a difference. Like it was so, I mean, the whole visa process Jake and I went through was so much. And then even like a few days before I was actually driving down, I looked at the actual documentation we had and it's like, this is not a visa. You cannot use this. And like Jake had mentioned, he's like, they'll probably just stamp it at the border, but maybe make sure. And so I spent like 4 hours calling different like government offices in Canada and the States, and no one could give me an answer on whether I'd actually be like let through the border. So like I ended up going to like the US consulate and everything, and they finally someone was like, "Yeah, you'll be fine. Don't worry."
Okay.
Like, but then even then, I was still freaking out about getting in. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was,
it is very confusing. And then they send you, they approve the visa, and the visa is it's got the name of the visa, the like number of that they give you, and it's got everything, but then it says like, this is not a visa.
Yeah.
But it's literally called a visa at the top of the document. But that's because the actual visa is the stamp that they give you.
super official.
That's that's the actual visa. So I did look it up before and I checked the government's websites to like verify that it had gone through and not just like trust the lawyers and all that stuff. But yeah, I think that's why they put that on there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but I could see, you know, like it could be nerve-wracking. There's also a lot of weird like for example, for some DACA recipients or like Dreamer recipients and things like that, I've heard that when they if they are about to like start the process of getting citizenship, or they're going to get citizenship, they have to, one of the and I get why this rule is in place, but one of the rules that shouldn't apply in this situation for like Dreamers, which I don't know if you guys know what Dreamers are, but it's like people who were taken up here by their parents when they were under the age of when they were minors, and they didn't have a choice in whether or not they could go. So they ended up in a country illegally that they didn't have a choice to enter. So the question is like, well, should these people be citizens and da 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 da? And so, but one of the processes is that you cannot become a citizen if you enter the United States illegally, and it's something like there's a 10-year rule where if it's like found that you've entered illegally and then, you know, yada yada, or like have overstayed or whatever, there's like a 10-year ban rule. And so what these people have to do is they have to go, because they didn't enter the country legally, technically, they have to go and then like re-enter. So they have to leave the country and then re-enter, just so that there's like a stamp that says like, okay, you entered the country legally.
And the only stamps that exist are outside the border, or like
No. You can't get the
sketchy,
stamp.
like-
You can't get the stamp unless you enter.
unless your feet leave.
But that's funny.
Yeah.
Mm.
I was just about to commend the stamp. I was about to like go on a tangent about electronic signatures and missing like that, you know, process, but I don't know. Now I'm like, this took a dark turn.
Yeah.
Stamp is very serious. Yeah, the stamp is very serious.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm glad, man. I'm glad that you basically had a party with the border.
It was, dude,
guards.
I'm not even joking. It was so funny. And
They toss you a beer on your way out or whatever.
it seriously felt like that. Like
you a
they were-
Budweiser and the American flag.
Yeah. They wrapped me in an American flag.
Yeah. And put you in a truck.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah, it was a
Go
it
rope
was,
some
That's so
cattle.
funny.
Get out of here.
Smack the back of the truck.
Go on, get.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Alright.
it was great, man. It was a great experience. Yeah, it was, you know, it was weird too, because it was right around the time like Canada was rolling back like some of the COVID laws and stuff. So it's like you didn't need to get tested at the land border, but you did at the it was a lot easier to get through the border and immigrate this time around than it was like that initial visit during the summer. Like flying
Yeah.
from Canada, that was like I almost didn't make the flight because the guy didn't understand what VFX was again. And
Yeah.
it was,
You needed a temp visa to just do the week here?
no, not even. It was just like, you know, say what you're traveling for. I was
Oh.
like, oh, it's for a job interview, which maybe wasn't the best idea. I should have just said leisure or whatever. But I mean,
Yeah.
it was the truth. And
Those things are intimidating.
oh, so
Yeah,
intimidating.
it's been more, obviously it's been a lot more rigid up in Canada too, in terms of like just some of the COVID protocols and stuff. Like, so I assume that's been lingering a lot longer, and like, you know, what you can and can't do and where you can and can't go
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
Yeah, at this point, I think they're pretty much in British Columbia, at least where I'm from. It's pretty much like I think they dropped like mask mandate. I think they're rolling back vaccine mandates, all that stuff. But yeah, it was really interesting. Like, I mean, COVID was just such a bizarre time. Like working from home was, I think, such a
Yeah.
crazy shift for the entire VFX industry, because you know the excuse had always been from studios like Marvel and all that. They're like, well, security wise, we can't do that.
Mhm.
And now it's like, yeah, you can. Like
Yeah.
during COVID, essentially during the process of like coming to work here at Corridor, I ended up actually signing a contract with Weta Digital, which was amazing, and working for them remote. Like I'd hoped to
Yeah.
maybe be able to get over to New Zealand at some point, but it was again so weird with how they had handled COVID. Like they were like, we're totally open, like whatever. And then I guess no one was vaccinated because they were
Yeah,
fine.
well, they had the little walled garden, and then like
Yeah,
one little bug
One
crept in.
bug got in, and then so it was so funny because we were like, you know, I was finishing up my contract there, and I was like, oh, I was out at the bar with my friends last night, and they're all like, we're in lockdown, we can't leave the house, and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, it's such a bizarre.
Can't even
thing.
open the windows.
Yeah,
That's brutal. That
The
is
bugs
super
might
brutal.
get in.
yeah,
dude.
it's just
What
it's
was that
just
like
so bizarre.
though? Like that's because that was the big thing. We met last summer, and then you're like, "This sounds cool, but there's one last thing I got to do." And we're like, "What's that?" And you're like, "Work for the top VFX house in the entire world."
Yeah, just real quick.
yeah,
just really quick.
And you guys are like, yeah,
We're
that
like-
sounds sick, right on.
We all like we all left, and you look up out the windows, and we all like look down, and we nod at you like, "This is the right thing to do."
Yeah.
Go on
Then you
your
walked
journey.
off into the sunset.
No, but seriously, how was that? Because like I'm still very curious. Like, what is that process like? Like, what were like? I mean, obviously, probably NDAs or whatever, but you know, what was that like?
Yeah, it was, man, it was really amazing. It's I definitely think I think it loses a bit of the magic of going to Weta by staying in your living room, you know?
Yeah, I know you don't get to be like, hey, on my lunch break, can I do a cool tour of like the model shop or whatever?
Yeah,
You know,
Quick
like,
tour
yeah.
of Peter Jackson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, right? So in that sense,
He's just in there.
Just waiting for people to look at him.
it's like in a back to tank,
Take a quick tour.
chilling.
yeah.
Yeah, it was so cool. It was amazing to get to go to a studio like that and see like their pipeline is so developed and so like they've got it so dialed. It was an incredible experience. I got to work on some really cool projects there. I think I'm allowed to say I worked on Hawkeye and Peacemaker, which were two really fun ones, and then another project that's still work in
nice.
progress.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it was amazing. It was the team, like everyone I met there was super nice, and I mean met remotely, but you still kind of get a vibe from people, and everyone's like so good at what they do there.
Did you work on any of the shots that are in that VFX breakdown for Hawkeye they just released?
It's the bridge.
Yeah,
stuff, right?
we did the whole bridge sequence.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wait a
yeah.
second.
So
Wait
cool.
a second.
The,
For the next VFX
Is this
Artist
turning
React,
into, wait, is
let's
this
just
turning
have
into
you as
VFX
the
Artist
guest.
React?
That would be sick. That would be
I'm being
sick.
super serious. Like that would be the funniest, like craziest episode ever. Where it's
What?
like, today we have a special guest. Here's Fenner. He worked on a bunch of Marvel movies, and he's also working with us now. Sorry, too excited.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's
That was
so cool.
Yeah.
Dude, it was my first day. Like they do the most amazing onboarding there. It was insane. They literally, you walk in day one, you log into your computer day one, and they're like, "What's up, kid?" And they're like, "Here's 2 weeks of just learning. Like,
Oh, awesome.
you're gonna spend." They work like 50-hour weeks is their standard there. They're like, "You're gonna learn for 50 hours a week for 2 weeks." So you basically it's really funny because I was worried going in there. I was like, "Oh man, I gotta like brush up on my deep compositing and stuff," because their whole setup in Nuke is all deep, like all their renders,
that's
which is
crazy.
incredible. They because they developed that
Yeah.
technology
And-
and like really
Deep compositing is like it's like some like weird like world space kind of based depth paths kind of stuff.
yeah. The basically like the way I try to explain it is basically like think of you're getting a render out
Mhm.
of I don't know Maya or V-Ray or something. Basically each pixel has like not depth info but deep data, so you can basically be like, if I want to place a 2D element in 3D space like on a card or something, it's just automatically held out by that 2D image.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
every like pixel
It's-
has like it's like locked like world data.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
you can
So to
basically within Nuke using like proprietary Nuke tools, and Weta had their amazing like suite as well. You can basically just like view your scene in 3D from a 2D image as well.
Does it
And-
look almost like a point cloud?
Yeah, it's like a super dense point cloud basically.
So cool.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet because that's the like
Mm.
you know, I guess it's time to nerd out on VFX.
Let's
But
do it.
like that's for me anyways. You know, there's a thing called like a Z depth pass.
Mhm.
Obviously, you render that out, and that's like a black and white image. It looks, you know, when you look at it, it's like, oh, here's a foggy environment.
Yeah.
But and it's cool. You can use it for like depth of field, all that stuff. But the problem is that it's locked relative to the camera. So if the camera like pushes through a scene, like the edge of that fog will push with it. And so you can do a lot of stuff with that. But when you actually have the position of every pixel in your image,
Mhm.
like it's like the same as having your entire shot 3D tracked and having a Z-depth pass, and then being able to apply way more complex things like actual true like volumetrics and fog and
Yeah,
like-
it's
And literally compositing into the depth of the render. Like,
yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's so incredible.
so
It's
awesome.
like it's so cool. And like going in there, they have their whole training program. And like I was trying to brush up on my deep before, and then basically day one, they're like, forget everything you've ever learned about Nuke. We have our own, basically.
So that's the thing that intrigues me is the proprietary software at Weta.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how much you can talk about it, but
I don't
probably
think
not at all.
all.
but just the experience of like, for example, when I think of deep compositing, I've never done it. I've like geeked out about it, but never like actually done it. And I just wonder, that must be the heaviest workflow for, you know, it's bad enough with like a crypto mat or, you know, multiple passes wrapped up in one EXR file, but deep just feels like it's going to be this chug monster that you'd
it's
have to be really
a lot of pre-comping.
set up for. Yeah. So yeah, like what was it like working with their tools without, you know, obviously.
It was amazing. Like that, the 2 weeks of training you get, you basically, you know, starting from the ground up with like relearning their comp workflow. And it's like, it was totally different from anything I'd ever been used to before, because it's like such a rigid pipeline. And think it was kind of cool going in there from a small studio experience, because there was like, you know, the first shot they gave me was on that bridge sequence, the car chase thing in Hawkeye, which was super cool. I was like, right out of the gate, I was like, okay, this is a cool shot. Like, holy crap. Like these people fighting between two moving cars on like the, I think the Manhattan Bridge or whatever. And it's like all the renders just looked awesome. But then there's like one small tweak during the dailies review, and they're like, oh, we'll have to send that back to lighting. It'll be like, render will be ready next week. And I was like, oh, I could tweak it. Like, and it's really funny when you like, the experience of the big studio was like, everything's so dialed in that it's like, there wasn't a ton of room for creative input, because it's kind of just like, hey, it looks good. If you need something tweaked, we'll go to a different department. But I think that's kind of a negative side of those big studios, because you're so like, it limits your creativity so much and limits like the problem solving side of VFX, which is kind of what VFX is. It's just like, okay, how can I use all these different software packages to get this shot done? So
yeah, there's a lot of fun in not knowing how to do something and finding a way. I totally agree.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing we talk about a lot too on, you know, like the VFX artist show, because like so much of the stuff we cover up until basically like the early 90s. I mean, there's still some stuff from like, you know, until like maybe the early 2000s, but generally anytime you wanted to create a cool effect, it was all about ingenuity. It was always like, here's something we're trying to do, and there's not like there's not a way to do it, so to speak. You have to invent a way to do it. And like when it came to not like with visual effects, it's basically like, all right, we want a monster and we want it to run around and do this XYZ thing. And so it's like, cool. All right. Yeah, we can do that. It's like, there's no, like, obviously there's like plenty of research artists do when it comes to like shading and like animation tricks and stuff like that to improve it. But you know, it's very frequently that, okay, yeah. Model a monster, put some bones on it. There we go.
Yeah.
So
You know.
is that something where when you get, you know, your workload, there's already like a very structured idea of what the final image is to look like?
Yeah, totally. Like it's pretty common in the industry now that you kind of go through like a previs phase where, you know, it's pretty well done. And then like big studios, they'll do like post-viz as well. So at that point, it's like, it pretty much looks like a play blast of the shot. And so you're like, okay, sweet. I just match to that. And then, I mean, the thing with Weta is like the lighting renders I was getting, I was like, oh man, I feel like I don't really even need to comp this. Like obviously you still go in there and try to, you know, give the shot your love and make it your special little baby every shot. But there's some of them that it's just like, especially once you've like templated out that nuke script, it was literally like swap in your new render and hit render. And you're like, all right, I guess I'll go grab a drink or something.
It's
like,
pretty impressive that they even, I mean, to have such a dialed in pipeline like that, which you'd have to,
yeah,
I would
that is
imagine, if
super
you're turning over
impressive.
so many
Just-
high-end
yeah,
projects like they do.
I really
just
like,
as a exercise in like ingenuity, organization, and like use of tools, man, it is pretty incredible.
yeah, it's, I mean, nothing but good things to say about my time there. It was a lot of work. Like there are, I mean, it's just the reality in the VFX industry. There's going to be like some crazy overtime depending on the project. So it was definitely a lot of hours. But you know, I knew that going into it, and I'd kind of committed to like, well, I'm working from home anyways. I'm just going to be this little VFX hermit for a while. Which was,
It's funny, you told me that before you started. You were
Yeah,
like,
man,
look,
it
I'm
was-
gonna work 70 hours a week, and I'm just gonna do that for 6 months and learn as much as I can. And
Yeah.
we were like, yes, dude, do it.
yeah,
that sounds awesome.
That's pretty much what happened. Yeah, it was pretty funny during one of the like kind of crunch periods on one of the projects. I like grew my beard out too, so it was like I just looked like this like actual like hermit man. Like, I was like,
It was consuming you.
it was just but
I mean, having come from that now, you've tasted the manna from heaven. Those tools built just for the gods.
yeah.
And coming back out of that now, I mean, do you miss them? Like, you know what's out. I don't know what's out there.
I mean,
I live in bliss.
Honestly, that was the thing that was most attractive about coming to Corridor, was getting back to that like small studio environment of like, hey, let's just make some cool stuff. Like, you know, the figuring out how to do it. Like, I don't know, when I was down here visiting and just talking about the Son of a Dungeon stuff, and like from what I'd heard from like listening to the podcast before, I was like, man, that sounds super cool. Like basically doing your like own like indie virtual production setup. And looks good and it works. And it's like, you know, just the idea of, like I said before, getting back to making films rather than working on films. Like it was, man, I went and saw the Batman the other day and watching the VFX credits for that. And one of the studios rolled up and 0 artist credits. I was like, oh, that sucks. Like that's the reality of the industry. It's such a machine.
Wow.
And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, those are artists that are probably working overtime, like really, really giving it and putting like a lot of work into the project, and then to not even get a credit, like not a single artist credit for the whole studio.
Wow.
I was like,
Just the studio name.
yeah, I was like, oh, that's
Yeah.
That
like,
really sucks.
yeah. And you definitely, I mean, again, I loved Weta, but there's definitely, you do get that aspect of like, oh, I'm such a small fish in such a large VFX pond.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it really just comes down to like, what is your process for filmmaking? And obviously you have a huge multi-million-dollar production. You're going to previs the crap out of it. You're going to figure out the exact timing and the exact framing and the exact everything of every shot in your film before anyone actually starts trying to make it look good.
But then change it all last minute once it looks good.
And then they change it all. Yeah. But like, even still, it's just that concept of like, oh, no, we did all the work. Someone else did all the work. They figured out the shot and they did all the stuff. All you're doing is just like, you know, putting some icing on it, you know? And that's how it comes off to me when I, like, it's maybe it's a little cynical, I suppose, but but it versus, you know, the smaller version, which is like, hey, look, we're making some shots. What should they be?
Yeah.
What should this look like?
Yeah.
What should, like, you know, and it's always, that's usually the start of the conversation all the time with that.
Yeah,
So-
I think it's so much more validating and rewarding to be like, oh yeah, we shot that, tracked it, modeled that thing, comped it, like did this like sound design, like, you know, having the creative input on it. And I think that's what I was missing so much. And what was like the reason I started doing VFX in the first place was like, I wanted to make these little dumb short films with my friends, like running around shooting each other with airsoft guns.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
sweet. Like,
Yeah, the joy for me too is also in the creative aspect of it.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, I was a little child actor, and the reason I got into acting was because I thought that the actors controlled the whole movie because they're the only ones that I saw. So I was like, oh, if I become an actor, then I get to make a movie. And then when I started doing it, I was like being told exactly what to do and not to stray from it. And then I saw the guy telling me what to do, and I said, what do you do? Because I want to do that. And that was directing. And then you start to like, oh, okay, hold on a second. Where's the creative outlet here?
Jordan,
You know?
when you were a kid, do you have a little British accent?
Oh, did Gaffner?
You did.
Yeah, I did. I did.
Do you
and
want me to dance again?
Oh, mommy, please don't. And I lost it when I was like 5. And then we had another British kid visit. He became my arch nemesis. No, I'm kidding. But I heard him speak, and then I
children.
Yes, he said, "Hello, Jordan."
And
I heard him speak.
playing pranks on you.
I heard him speak, and then recognized in myself that I no longer had the accent. This is the first moment I became like self-aware, and I remember just openly weeping.
Oh,
I didn't hide it. I openly wept, and I was comforted by some lovely older woman. I don't remember who it was.
Did
But
she have a
Yeah,
British
I
accent?
could understand being openly weeping if you lose a British accent. It just sounds cooler
Yeah.
than
as
any
far as
other
accents
English
go, that's a
accent.
good one.
It's a good one. I had
Yeah.
a northern English accent though, so like kind of near Liverpool.
Oh,
Liverpool.
okay.
So it'd be a bit more like abrasive.
Yeah,
Than like
yeah,
a
it's
lovely.
almost-
You're a
there's-
lovely
it's-
boy.
Yeah, I take
That's
it
so
back.
I don't
nice.
mean to
That's
be.
not
I don't
cool.
mean to be insulting, but it's like there's Northern Ireland has a very particular accent that it's like it's Irish, but it's not.
That's all
but
the
it's
sounds
Scottish, but
condensed
it's
into
not.
like one response.
It's just amazing to me, like how you go literally like an hour in one direction and people speak totally differently in terms of their accents.
It's crazy. I almost equate it to go from LA to Pasadena. And it's a completely different dialect almost. It's
Right.
one of the wildest things. And I think it's because how long they've been there, I guess. And before the old horse and buggy, they were basically different countries. If you're 30 miles away, I'm never going to see you. You don't exist to me.
Like if you go far enough in one direction, they literally speak a different language called like Welsh.
Welsh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you go out to the desert here in California
on an
like,
island,
I literally don't
that's like the
speak your
size of
language.
Illinois.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
It's so
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, it is that historical holdover.
Mhm.
That's cool. That's pretty sweet.
Well,
Do you know French?
prior to
No.
I'm supposed to know French. It's Canada's second language, and I got.
well, you're
kicked-
also from Western Canada
yeah,
too.
I also got kicked out of French class.
That's the problem. See, Canada's
Yeah.
second language. The priorities are clear.
Yeah. Do you?
I had a friend who was Quebecois.
Wait, why did you get kicked out?
I
Was
was
Poor French or?
a little bit of like poor French, and also
It was like the pardon my French kind of thing.
Oh, I was man, I was such a bad student. Like I would make her name was Madame.
Oh,
I would make the
course.
Madame's life just
that was her name?
no Madame.
She was French. Yeah, wow.
Pranks.
Yeah, I
Madame.
made her life horrible, and I didn't blame her for kicking me out of the class. It was like principal's
That's when you
office
know
every
you were
day.
bad. When you say I don't blame them.
I really
That's
don't
when you know.
like, man. It's so much regret. I ended up teaching VFX like after school and stuff for a couple years, just before moving down here. And it's different because the students are for the most part like adults, but even then you're still like, oh man, teaching is brutal. Like
Yeah.
it's so hard.
Yeah.
And this is like, grown adults where they're for the most part respectful, but sometimes would like talk back or something, and you're like, oh God. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I feel like the high school years are probably the toughest because
Oh
your
my-
limbs are longer than your attention span, and you just got all these like gangly.
Oh, I was the gangliest child. Like I feel like I still am, but I was like gangle to the max. Like
You're a gangloid as well.
Yeah. Oh
I
my
also was a
God.
gangloid.
Yeah, I was always like very tall growing up, like just shot up like a beanpole, but I was like so skinny and like I was
Yeah.
loud and just like
It's such an odd period of time too because you're 6'2", but you weigh about 85 pounds soaking wet.
yeah.
And you still want to watch cartoons. It's the strangest, like, I don't know what to do with myself, Mom.
Yeah, it was-
Leave me alone.
it was
Running
yeah,
upstairs.
It was so weird. Like I remember I used to like during the summers, my dad was a commercial salmon fisherman, which I feel like is very Canadian.
That's like the most Canadian
Like,
thing.
yeah, it's been in my family for generations. But I used to go, that was my summer job, is I would go commercial salmon fishing with him. And so
Oh, cool.
I would be like 16 and we'd be up in these like northern towns. We'd go as far like north as Alaska and stuff. And I remember going to like these pubs and stuff and being like 16 and they're like, well, you're like 6 foot something, like come on in, and like they'd serve me when I was
Yeah.
like my voice is still cracking. I'm like, hi, can I get a beer please? Like it was hilarious, man. I feel like I was such a weird tall child
Yeah.
thing. Like
That's crazy.
Yeah, they're not checking up there.
no
And-
way.
Yeah, if you're on a salmon boat fishing, I feel like you
So wait,
have
so
a
yeah,
beer,
can we
man.
take
Like,
can we take a tangent about that real quick? So
Yeah.
you went salmon fishing in the Pacific Ocean, in the North Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, that was my job for 8 years. That's how I paid for VFX school, was catching fish.
Really?
oh,
Yeah, it was amazing. It really was like my great grandparents did it and stuff, and it's came through my mom's side of the family. And then
Yeah.
my mom and dad were like they met actually at film school in Vancouver, and then my mom's parents, they had their own salmon fishing boat, and like
Wow.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was
a lot of salmon.
It
Yeah,
goes deep.
It was the whole family, like my aunt and uncle.
Wait, I'm getting a lot here. I'm getting fishing and film
Well,
in the family history.
Yeah, for real. That's like what the family does is like film work. Most of it on set. I'm the first like VFX kid.
Mm.
Huh.
But yeah, it was kind of this weird thing of like the fishing season was mostly just like kind of from like early summer to kind of it usually ends around like October or something. It's different depending on the fishery, but a lot
Yeah.
of depending on the fishing season, some of them would just like take the rest of the year off because it was quite lucrative back in the day. But like a couple of my uncles, like they worked on set and stuff. My great uncle, he's like did some producing and stuff, and it was just because Vancouver is such a big film industry and it was really kind of blowing up
Yeah.
around that time. And so I think there's some like old commercial somewhere where it's like my uncle on his fishing boat because he's like, oh, I know a guy with a boat, and it's him. Like
Yeah,
it was like an Advil commercial or something. It's like, when you've had a hard day out on the tack,
Yeah.
like, you need an Advil. Like,
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
totally.
but yeah, it was it was cool. It kind of sucked because I didn't get a lot of summers. I was like up like covered in fish blood, and it was like cold and wet. But it was I no regrets. Like I was it was an amazing experience, and like, you know, afforded me the opportunity to go to a really great VFX school. And I was like, by the end of high school, I was like bringing my laptop out there on the boat and like working on little animations.
Wait. I found Advil TV spot crossing the Atlantic.
Oh, I don't
Is
know
that
if
it?
that. I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know if you'd be able to find it, but
Was it like Deadliest Catch vibes?
Let me see.
not that insane because we're on like smaller salmon boats. But when you were up north, like off the coast of Alaska, you'd hear those guys on the radio and stuff. And I loved that show growing
Whoa.
up. And so you'd hear like, I don't know what was your
Just
name, like
screaming.
yes, for real. You'd be like,
Eating me.
I don't know. It was one called like the Sea Shepherd or something. Like you'd hear those boats and you'd be like, whoa, that's like celebrity boat. Like,
That's cool. Wow.
But yeah, it was so cool, man.
Wait, so there's like a culture amongst like your boat and like what boat you're on?
Oh yeah, big time. It was like
Really?
I mean, I kind of I was the last of my family to ever take up the reins.
Yeah.
But it was like, man, there was like it was like this big booming industry for a while from all the stories I've like been told. And it was like
Yeah.
a whole thing. You'd have like your crew, like, so it'd be like my mom and dad had their boat. My mom's brother, my uncle Michael, he had his own boat. My great uncle Jimmy, he had his own boat.
Wow.
And then my
Yeah.
Nana and Opie, my grandma and grandpa, they had their own boat, and they'd be like rolling in this crew with like some of our family friends and stuff. And yeah, it was
Yeah.
cool. It was it's a bit of a weird, like, I don't know, family history, but it was super cool. And
Well, that's a great way to like make money in a particular season and then be able to go off and do other things, which I feel like is very, I mean, yeah, I feel like it's a lot of people that ended up in that area, you know, kind of where you're from. Like that's part of the life. It's like you weren't just like working, doing one thing. Like a lot of people, those people were living, you know, off the land, off of what they could do, you know, all that stuff.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, like Vancouver, like the west coast of Canada is such an amazing place. It's like, you know, a lot of them, once they got there, immigrating from different parts of the world, they're like, well, I'm not going to leave. Like, this is amazing. My Nana, she always likes to say she didn't go very far in life because she's like now lives like 10 minutes from where she was actually born. Like,
Wow.
and yeah, it's just, you know, she I mean, still is till this day. She's a total badass. Like, she captained her own fish boat and stuff. Like,
That's awesome.
Wow.
yeah, she's awesome. But it was it's cool, man. It was you know, they would work like all summer, and then my parents especially, they would just be like ski bums during the winter basically, and like they yeah, it was pretty cool.
Do you like the smell and taste of salmon after all those years of
I
being around it?
I honestly love it.
Oh,
It's-
nice. Well, that's
yeah,
great.
It's like my favorite, honestly. It's one of those things though, I'm like so snobby about it, so I like never I'll never order like
So you know what good salmon is
Yeah.
now. That's so you're cursed as well.
yeah. Yeah, it was always like really funny because I would never order like seafood out with friends or anything because I was always like, oh, I got a freezer full at home. But yeah,
That is
That's
true though.
so
It's like
funny.
when you have any sort of standards of expectation, life is a little bit worse in my opinion.
yeah,
It's kind of nice to just be down for whatever the cheapest wine on the menu. Just yes, whatever.
seriously.
I
though,
can't tell
right?
the
Like,
difference.
yeah,
Thank you.
it's it was such a cool experience though, man. Like I would like, I mean, it was, I think probably kept me out of a lot of trouble because it was like during the summers, you know, where you get up to shenanigans, and I would just be out there working, and it like I would bring I had like a little Sony Handycam, and I would like make little films and stuff while I was fishing, and like I think you could probably, there's like one on Vimeo somewhere
Oh,
of
heck
me
yeah.
fishing when I'm like a little kid.
Nice. We gotta find all these. We got an Advil
Covered in
TV
fish
spot.
blood.
We got Fenner's fish boat.
Yeah, I think it is on Vimeo. I'll find that at some point.
That's awesome.
Is but yeah, it was cool. It was like, it's kind of weird, but it was like that's how I learned to like edit in Premiere and stuff, was like on my laptop on a fish boat, like just
You must have a strong
Wow.
stomach.
oh dude, yeah, do not get seasick. I don't.
Do you get
Yeah.
sick from VR?
No, it's like reading in cars, whatever.
Oh, man.
I'm all good.
That's incredible.
Because yeah, it was like I mean, it was so funny. Like you'd be doing wheel watches because you'd had to run the boat like overnight down from like we'd fish off like southern tip of Alaska kind of thing, and run it down to Prince Rupert, which is a town in northern BC, like a port where we'd unload fish.
Yeah.
And so I'd like do a wheel watch where it's like, okay, we'd leave the fishing grounds at like, 8 p.m. and maybe get into port, like run all night, get in at like 6 a.m. or something, and you take shifts watching. You can't really see anything, but you're checking the radar and stuff. And I'd just be sitting at the helm with my laptop, like working on music or like
awesome.
editing stuff. And I was like, it's so funny to me that like that's where I like practiced VFX and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, that's really epic, man. Like that's super cool. It's such a great way to like live free too, you know? Like you do that part of the year and then you work on sets part of the year, or like, yeah, that's just what an experience.
Yeah, it was really cool. It's one of those things I like during COVID, I was like, well, if the whole industry shuts down, I'll just go become a fisherman. Like,
Nice.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's wild.
I've never been to that northern part of the Pacific.
It is amazing, man. Like especially there's Haida Gwaii, also known as like the Queen Charlotte Islands. It's off like the coast, like northern island off the coast of Canada.
Yeah,
like
I'm looking at it on a map here.
Dude, one of the most amazing places I've ever been, and we were lucky enough that we would fish around there a lot. And it's just like, it's really crazy. They have a lot of like the indigenous, like First Nations, like you can still go find this remote island with all like the old longhouses and stuff still just there in the forest. And it's like, it is crazy, man. Like not so much anymore, but like my parents would tell me stories that they'd be walking along and you'd find like skeletons and stuff.
Oof.
Like it's like this crazy, like kind of untouched land. I think it's a lot different now because it's kind of, a lot of people know about it.
Wow.
But
Now,
it was,
now that we know there's
Clean the
ruins
bones.
and bones.
yeah, but it was very, very cool. It was, you know, one of those places that I would love to go back to one day, just to be able to experience, because I did get to experience it, but a lot of the time we were working, so you didn't get to go exploring as much, but it's a very, very cool place.
That's awesome. Wonder if they have a sign that says "We're now bone free."
Something like that. I know.
Yeah.
Now
We're now
bone free.
Yeah, pretty much.
Family friendly and bone free.
That's awesome, man.
That is cool. Yeah, that's like so far away.
Does anyone else have a family history we don't know about that we need to talk about?
Not on that level. I mean, that's like a lineage of iron fishermen.
Jordan, you're like secretly part of the royal family. Or
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
The Lost Prince.
They gave me my dowry. Well, I don't think that's the right word. Whatever the heck you give them to go away.
Prince
I might be
Jordan.
wrong about this. People that are really into like royal and heraldry and stuff like that might be mad about this, but I read somewhere that there's some documented justification to establish how Queen Elizabeth is related to King David.
Huh. Yeah, I'm not familiar. I'm very bad with English history. I just think that it's funny that the guards of the palace are called beef eaters, you know? That's enough for me. That's
Makes a good gin though.
What? That's
You didn't
so
notice?
silly.
Yeah, they're called beef eaters.
That's not very descriptive.
So in a way, we're all guards of the Queen's
do you
palace.
think that's a callback to like when beef was like a hard thing to get and like these guys were strong and tough, and so let's look this up real quick.
I was kind of hoping.
Yeah,
I got my fingers
more like
crossed.
slang.
Yeah,
Wait,
it's like a
remember when-
slang or like something you'd shout at them when you're mad.
We actually talked about this on the previous
Hey,
podcast.
beef eater.
Remember
Yeah.
the feasting and the knights and the largest knights and
Yes,
their
more ham for the
feasts?
knights.
Yeah, ham.
Oh, originally a derogatory term for a well-fed servant.
Hey,
Wow.
Jordan,
Ah,
you're
Beef eater.
Beef eater.
Yeah.
beef eater.
Wow.
Beef eater.
What
They
are
were
they?
eating all the
permitted to
beef.
eat as much beef as they wanted from the king's table. Henry VIII.
Everyone's
decreed
just
that some
loitering
would-
to get
them
more
would
beef.
Stay.
Gotta
He
get
did-
that.
It's
yeah.
like Harold,
Queen
you've had
beef.
enough.
Henry
My lord.
VII's personal guards were the first beef eaters.
Wow.
Some beefy boys.
It's such a weird insult.
So Henry VIII told them to stay and guard the tower permanently.
That's like us going, you know what? Honestly, we're hiring roto monkeys. You are an official roto monkey. Here's your title. And it's like,
Hat and
okay.
stuff.
Yeah. It's like, and here's your hat you have to wear when you rotoscope.
Because
And by
the
the way,
outfit is
you can't
interesting.
show any emotion while
Yes,
you're
yes.
rotoscoping.
Yeah. It's a good thing that you're a roto monkey.
It is. Yeah, it's a funny
something you should
slang
be proud
choice.
about being a roto monkey.
I mean, that's how the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame got started.
Because everyone was
'Cause,
like those drunk Irish people fighting.
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time?
Well, it's kind of derogatory, for like a bunch of
Absolutely.
Catholic kids, a bunch of rowdy Catholic kids, the fighting Irish.
Yeah, that one makes more sense as being derogatory, but like beef eating. I guess I don't see the insult, I'm
You're
not
not
seeing
going
it.
back far enough.
Like,
dude.
look
You're
at
not
you.
going-
You're all well fed.
Well, they all come out
Yeah,
of the
okay.
king's court, going like,
Because
Yeah.
back
and
in
then
the
you're
day,
just like these
Jordan,
gaunt,
that was
like,
hard.
skeletal, like
Beef
peasants,
eater.
like beef eater. Yeah.
Back in the day, that would have been something that would have been very hard to get.
Yes.
Like the ability to eat beef all the time.
The ability to be
a
bloated.
buffet of beef, all you can eat.
All you can eat from the king's table. Only.
That's
Yeah.
kind of
All
awesome.
other tables are off limits. Yeah, I know. That's a great perk. Unlimited beef. If we can institute that here, if we just have the king's table and it's just full of beef,
I'll
I'm
be
down.
a beef eater.
Yeah, all day.
I often think about how, like, if you were to go back in time, like 500 years ago, if at the time, what they would give, sorry, I can't describe this very well. Expiration dates on food, like how much more lenient people were, where they're like, sometimes, I make a salad and the next day it's all dank, like wet,
How
and you're like,
lenient are you guys?
ugh, but I'm like, dude, if this was 500 years ago, I'd be like,
Legit.
this would be great still.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like I'm still that way. I eat some like I'm like leftovers. They've been there for 2 weeks. I'm like, I'll
Yeah.
risk it. Like,
No, I'm usually good on some. I mean, yeah, but yeah.
Depends on how good the salmon is.
oh, dude, I honestly think it comes from fishing because we'd be out there and you'd go for like long periods of time, and so you'd be like tasting the milk and it's like half sour. You're
Yeah.
like, whatever, I need it.
Wow.
Yeah.
One time.
How often did you guys stop?
The first season or second season I fished, we were on a freezer boat, so that you're out there for like 3 weeks to a month at a time.
Oh wow.
Just like out there away from
Yeah.
port. But then most of the time when I was fishing with my dad, we had an ice fishing boat. So then you do like 5 days, 10 days max probably. So you're out there for like 10 days at a time.
Before you have to
But,
port again.
yeah, but the refrigeration was lackluster. Like our fish boat was like an old wood salmon troller built in like the 1950s. Like
Wow.
It was wooden?
Yeah, it was an old wooden boat.
my
It was one of
God.
the last wooden boats on the coast. It was super cool.
You've been out on those wild ocean waters. How the heck did the Vikings do it on those wooden boats?
Dude, like insane. Like,
How terrifying.
yeah, I mean, we're out there on like, solid, I mean, they're a wood boat, but it's a solid boat. And like even in like weather that's not that crazy, you're still terrified. Like, dude, the like Viking ships and stuff, that was insane.
Yeah.
Like they went all over the world on these little like
Long
And they just use
boats.
like sun shadows or something on a little device.
yeah, it's amazing.
At least that's what the show said, the Viking show. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's
Dude, yeah,
that's accurate, 'cause
Season
that's-
one, that was awesome.
literally all I know. But yeah, it's just wild to me that people would go out in a hunt for gold. Like that's the weirdest part. To leave your land where you're good, you've got food, you've got shelter, to get in a wooden boat, go across the ocean, just trusting this rock and shadow idea, to go get gold from other people
And
that you
beef.
can't really even use at all, and bring it back and then put it down.
They got to get that king's beef too, though.
That yeah,
That's
they're
what
going to the
they're
king's
going for
table.
the beef.
That's worth dying for.
It was a hard life though, man. Like your perspective would have been totally different.
Yeah.
It would have been totally different.
And there's the Valhalla idea, right? The honorable way to go is in combat
Right.
or something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe the pursuit of that is worth it too. But
We're
yeah,
finding new people to fight.
yeah,
I guess.
sick of all these
Yeah.
people.
That's mostly their reasoning.
Their
huh?
forest is full of bones. Still, there's not a bone-free
No.
zone.
Well, that was kind of built into their culture, though. That was how like men established themselves. It was like you were literally like, okay, how many towns have you raided?
Mm.
How many, how much gold have you taken? How many people have you killed? Like that. That's all part of the.
That's wild.
It's just it's kind of hard for us to even fathom
They
it.
were just
You
clout
know?
chasing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's like Dark Souls.
It's yeah.
Gotta
Yeah,
see
pretty
what's-
much. Pretty much.
Just looking for more and more people to fight.
More
Yeah.
XP,
Yeah, more
gold.
XP.
more treasures, more bosses.
Not to like totally stereotype, but like prison culture is a little bit like that. And you can see it sometimes in like gang culture and the way that it carries over too. But it's like you establish it's all about quote respect and quote honor, because there's hardly any of those two quote things. And so it's all like revolved around like that whole omerta culture of like, you know, you don't say it upon omerta means like I swear to be silent on pain of death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good times.
Interesting.
Yeah. Prison culture. There you
Dark
go.
Souls, Vikings, Omerta,
And-
gang culture. There's a web there.
Sorry, that was kind of a tangent.
It's interesting, though.
But man,
beef.
And beef.
yo, so Fenner, you're gonna have to take us all out on a fishing boat, man.
That would be
sounds
cool.
like an epic adventure.
Yeah,
Or we can simulate it. Line the couches up here.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know
We'll
Peter?
crank
Do
the
you know who
AC,
Peter
and then you
McKinnon
just,
is?
like, yeah.
Peter McKinnon. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
I
a really
like his stuff.
well-known, Canadian creator. He's done a bunch of stuff out on, like I don't know if he's on fishing boats or what, but he's got like shots of whales and like shots of like icebergs and like he's getting all kinds of crazy photography out there.
Yeah,
Man. I don't know where he's getting it, but it's amazing.
Yeah, you'd see a lot of whales and stuff. Like it was amazing. Like this place called Cape Shacken off the coast of Alaska. It's like the northernmost border of Canada in Alaska. Like it was really funny. We'd be fishing in Canadian waters, and then at night you'd go anchor up in the American waters. So you'd have to call into the Coast Guard every night and be like, "Yo, can we stay here?" But man, for like the last 3 years of my dad and I fishing together, there was like this pod of humpback whales that would be up there every summer.
Wow.
It was like 7 or 8. And they do this crazy thing called bubble feeding, where you'll just be out on like the back of the fish boat, like checking the lines. And then you'll see this massive bubble in the water. And you're like, oh God. And it's like Cthulhu or something's going to come up. And all of a sudden it's like 7 or 8 humpback mouths will come up because they basically trap all the krill in these like bubble nets that they make. And then they just go straight up, and it's like this mountain coming out of the water, and it would just be every day for like months. For like the last 3 years we fished, it was.
And you're on
coolest
a
thing ever.
wooden fishing
Yeah, and I think the boat.
a salmon skimmer or whatever. What did you call
Whales
it?
aren't going to
salmon
go after
trawler.
the boat.
Yeah.
No, but it's like sometimes they come up and they're so close that you're like, oh man, did they almost hit us?
Actually,
Like,
How
bump a
long are
hole
these
in it.
boats? How long are these salmon boats?
I think our boat, it was on the smaller side. I think it was like 40. I think it was like 46 feet. I want to say.
How big is one of those whales?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
that's where you're on the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Humpback whale
Maybe the
length.
same size.
It's probably about the same size. Let's
Yeah,
see.
it's
yeah,
so cool, man.
49 to 50 feet.
And there's
49
7
to
of 'em.
52 feet.
Yeah, it's crazy. You should look up like bubble feeding hump. It looks like
So a whale comes up that's as long as the boat that you're on.
yeah, with like their mouths
7 of
open.
them.
It's it's the
Oh my
craziest
God.
That
looking
is
thing.
wild.
Yeah, if you look up bubble feeding, it looks like this demon coming up. It's just these mouths, and I guess they get all the water in their gullet or whatever, so it's all stretched out. It looks
Whoa.
like terrifying.
It
I
looks
never-
like
yeah.
I mean, it looks like a bunch of fish feeding at the surface, but they're just so big.
Yeah,
It's
And then they do it in like patterns too.
yeah. It's like they do like these spiral patterns, so it's super
Yeah.
weird. It's like when you're out there and you've been out there a while. I don't know. It got weird.
Yeah. No joke.
Yeah.
The ocean is really scary, and
Oh.
I never used to find it scary. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so
There it
you'd
is.
just be like fishing
Oh, that's so
along the
cool.
tack, and then you'd see something like that. All of a sudden, you're like, "Oh, is it like a demon coming up from the depths right now?" Like,
So they
Wow.
all work together to like spiral trap them in the bubble net.
Yeah,
It's so crazy. Like I watch a lot of stuff like this with my kids because they're like really into it. And yeah, whales
Yeah.
and dolphins both do really similar things.
Yeah.
Like dolphins in like low, like more shallow waters, they do the spiral, but instead they basically kick up the sand.
yeah,
And so instead of using bubbles to trap them in, they basically create like this like sand vortex in the water,
so
just
cool,
like
man.
that.
Wow.
And the exact same thing happens.
Man,
So
it's so
cool.
cool. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's only a certain pod of dolphins that know how to hunt like that at least humans know about.
Oh well,
They're like the elite
Dang.
dolphins.
maybe it's
Yeah.
the elite dolphin.
I think I've seen what you're talking about, and I think that's only been documented like with that family of dolphins.
It's so cool.
I think.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. They're so smart. Like we'd have, I guess an orca, like a killer whale, is technically a dolphin. They like it's funny talking with my dad about it and stuff. And he'd be like, "Oh, this never used to happen." But like when we were fishing, they got smart enough that they knew they could go up and bite the fish right off the line, and they'd like just bite them just shy of the head so that they wouldn't get the hook in them or anything. And so yeah, it was crazy, man. Like they just knew that. They're like, "Oh, there's fishing boats there, sweet, free fish." Like
That's incredible.
it's crazy. It was cool. We
Wow.
yeah, I have like this very healthy fear of the ocean from fishing.
It's funny too because like my dad and I did the cage diving thing in South Africa for the great whites.
Yeah.
And I wasn't afraid of the ocean at that point at all. I just thought it was really cool and fascinating, and I was really excited to do it. And they threw out a little foam like seal shaped thing onto the top of the water. We were just hanging out on the boat, just chatting, having a good time. And all of a sudden you hear like the water get disturbed, and I ran over to the side, and you literally see this mouth. It was the craziest thing. It was like pitch black ocean, and then just this mouth come up out of the black and just snap it in half.
Dude.
And like so violently rip it away and go down, and it was half gone that I immediately had this whole new respect. I mean, I should have had it before I went, but seeing that, and that wasn't even a big one. That was like a 13.5 foot. And I think they get to like 20 plus feet or something. But the guy on the boat was saying come wintertime, they go and chow down on all the seals that are going through. Yeah. And he said on one trip, he saw 5 seals get eaten by great whites that are just coming out and just snapping their heads off and ripping them to pieces. And they come out of nowhere. And supposedly they not only can sense that you're in the water, and I could be wrong, so shark people correct me, but they can like sense your like central nervous system, the electricity in it, and they can see if you're nervous. Like they sense that you're nervous from way far away, and they'll take a bite just to like see, oh, is this prey? And they don't really like the taste of human, I don't think. So they'll leave you, but you'll be one leg less, and that's not really worth it. Yeah. So if you're in the water, you got to be like chill, I guess.
I am so terrified of sharks because of another fishing story here.
Fishing stories.
Fishing stories.
Title of the podcast.
Dude, this is great. I didn't expect it to go this direction, and this is great.
So you'd work kind of crazy hours. My dad was great. He'd let me sleep in because I was a moody ass, gangly teenager boy. And so he'd let me sleep in till like 6 a.m. So I'd like get up and be like half asleep. And I remember one time getting up and going, I think it was during I guess it's El Nino or La Nina when the water's all warm or something. So we were getting sharks up like off the coast of Alaska even. And so I went out to go pee over the side of the boat, and I looked down, and this shark swims right under where I'm peeing, and I was like, whoa! Like I was like half asleep. I was like, oh my god! And my dad's like, okay, go pull the line in. And I pull in the line. I'm like, oh man, there's like a huge fish on this, and it was a big spring salmon, like a Chinook. I think they're called king salmon in the States. But it's big, and I'm like, whoa, this thing's huge. And I pull it in, and I'm like, oh, it's not that heavy though, and it's bitten clean in half. And this thing's like this thick, like the size of my leg, like, and it was like shark bite clean in half. And I was like, oh,
hey, it's freaky.
And ever since then, I'm so scared of sharks, like terrified.
It's so bad. How many? What percentage?
Can we just change the title quick to Fenner peeing on a shark?
Yeah, I was literally about to say what percentage of people
our new VFX artist peed on a shark.
Dude, that's
like literally.
That's why I'm scared. They want to get back.
They have your scent now. What percent of people on Earth have peed on a live shark in the ocean? You might be the only one. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Dude, it was
maybe that's the title.
Yeah, it was it's a very like it's one of those memories that I'm like, did that happen? Like but like so like this big salmon, and just bringing that in and being like, oh, that is bigger than my leg. Like that's just clean in half, like this like V-shaped bite, and you're just like, oh,
it's like a generic shaped bite mark.
Yeah, for real. It's like real
like a cookie cutter
shark bite .png.
So oh my god,
how big was it? Do you know roughly? Like
PNG.
The shark?
Yeah,
not even that big. Like I think they're blue shark. We just call them salmon sharks.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 10 feet. Maybe I don't know though. It's hard to tell.
I mean, and I don't know enough about the distinctions between the different sharks to like have a good understanding. But it went on another thing with my dad, and it was like you get in with them, I guess, and they're big, and you don't see how big they are until you get in off the boat. But you're out there with one guy on a small boat, and he says, "Yeah, it's safe." And you don't know if he's right or not. And there's no insurance. It's like just a guy on a boat. Like he's like, get in. He might be into that kind of thing, like watching people get eaten. And like I get into the water and I go under, and he starts throwing chum in or whatever. and they all
Yeah.
start coming out, and there were probably like 15, 20 of them, and they were all like 6, 7, 8 feet long. And I remember being amongst them as they were like ripping this thing to pieces, thinking, what am I doing? And I felt like I come up for air because I'd like go under with my little mask, and he's pointing like this. He goes, big one. And so I go back under and I look, and it's like swimming right at me. It's like this thick thing, and I remember
Was it a tiger shark?
It was I don't know, to be
Beefeater
honest.
sharks.
It's a beefeater. Yeah, and I remember it was
a
my most
beefeater
submissive
shark.
moment of my life, because I just pressed myself gently against the bottom of the boat, and I was like, please don't. And it like swam right next to me to where its side like slid against my back, and I just felt it like sliding against my back as it went to the food. And I've never felt so vulnerable.
Dude, Jordan, that actually makes me like nauseous.
Yeah,
Like, it's so
it
scary.
was
like,
I got right in the boat, and we went home.
That's a great note to wrap things up on. It's starting to get to that time, guys. I think also,
Wow.
didn't I hear that also they make diving suits or whatever that like specifically do some weird like electromagnetic something or another to like mess with fish? Like you're talking about the nervous system stuff, and like
I feel like I saw that.
I feel like
somewhere.
I've heard about that somewhere. And that would make
That
sense.
sounds useful.
Like,
How about just shark-resistant diving suit?
no, I've heard. I've
Just
actually
chainmail?
like no. There's like hunting gear that does that. You know, there's like scent masking hunting gear, but there's some stuff that also like messes with like either static or electrical charges on your body to
Oh, that's cool.
help hide yourself better.
That's very cool.
Anti-shark bite technology.
Is that what you're Googling or what you
It's
found?
just steel.
Yeah, it's
Neptunic.
It's
It's
just
just
a
a slab of
Neptunic
metal.
Shark suit.
chainmail. Just
Okay,
with
yeah,
a sword.
this literally is just chain. This literally is just chainmail.
No, it's just a gun. just like a,
It's a $7,500 chainmail suit
Wow.
for shark diving.
So you don't get bit, but you drown.
yeah.
No, it's lighter. The chains are lighter
Oh,
in water.
nice.
They're
Nice.
chains. They're
Yeah.
like mini
Inflatable chainmail.
inflatable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
it's so
All right.
weird.
Well, hey, what's up?
Could you play us a sea shanty?
Oh, do you know any sea shanties?
shanty. Oh man. There's a great Sturgill Simpson song called what is it called?
Stacey's
Sea
Mom?
Stories. No. You and Stacy's mom. Dude.
It's always my guess.
I hear she's got it going on.
Yeah, she does. It's true.
No, unfortunately, I don't know any sea chants off the top of my head, but I can make one up.
All
Yeah,
right.
love
hit
it.
it. It's the best kind.
That's like the Irish. Like we merge all the cultural like heritage in this room.
Is there lyrics?
I don't know. Could there be? I was on a. Fenner woke up one morning and he had to pee, so he went outside. And what did he see? He saw a shark. He had to pee. It was as long as his fishing boat.
What was?
Did you think I was
What was
going to
as long
say
as his
something
fishing
different? I'm talking about the sharks.
Okay,
What
good,
do
good,
you
good.
think, Jordan? Come on.
You know, we need context. It's important. African sea
It was a
shanty.
shark.
All right. Well, bravo.
Oh, what a note to end on.
All
there.
right, thanks you for joining the CorridorCast, everybody. Fenner, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah.
It's good to finally have you down from the land of Canada, and super excited for what we're going to be making here.
Yeah, man, I'm so stoked for what's gonna be coming up here in the future.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah,
Yeah, brother.
All right, guys.
Go eat some beef.
Beef time.
Beef down.
They're gonna be calling me beef
Later.
tomorrow morning.
Get beefed up.